Well, that last scene was a game changer now, wasn't it? Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at CinemaBlend, and I am going to be doing analysis videos for WandaVision with each new episode of the Disney Plus series that drops. It is the first new Marvel content that we have seen, or MCU content, that we have seen since Spider-Man Far From Home reached theaters all the way back in July of 2019. A full year without Marvel content, and I don't know about you guys, but I was starving to get anything new from the MCU, and it certainly didn't disappoint with the first episode of WandaVision. I'm going to pick apart a lot of the things that I saw in the episode and of course talk about that final scene, which is a total game changer for where things are going in the MCU in terms of the types of things that they could set up. Before I dive into the full analysis of the first episode of WandaVision, make sure that you go down and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Follow me all the way throughout the first season of WandaVision, and we'll, I'm sure, bleed right into the rest of the Marvel shows as they come to Disney Plus. Okay, so I want to start at the very end and discuss what that was and what it means. So after seeing this episode play out, this artifice that Wanda has created, I believe, in her head of these recreations of classic sitcoms, and we'll get to that format and whether that works or doesn't work in a second. We pull back and we finally start to get our first real insight at around the 22-minute mark of what exactly is going on. At least a tiny hint or a sliver. And we see that somebody is paying attention to a television screen and watching the stuff that Wanda is creating. And we see a logo and some verbiage that is going to be really important for people who have read the comics. And I'm going to educate you guys now in case you haven't kept up to date with things that are going in the Marvel comics. But we have been introduced now officially to S.W.O.R.D. And S.W.O.R.D. stands for Sentinel World Observation and Response Department, and it's an offshoot of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the books. So S.H.I.E.L.D. now gives way to S.W.O.R.D. People have obviously paid attention to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As the television show that was developed, and of course the amount of stuff that Nick Fury and Maria Hill and Phil Coulson and all these characters did as heads of S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. has gone through different variations through its involvement in the MCU. S.W.O.R.D. Is now apparently the ones who are watching over Wanda as she goes through this new alternate reality that she has created where she can live with Vision. And part of the reason why S.W.O.R.D. is so exciting is because they exist primarily to deal with extraterrestrial threats that might be coming to our planet. And their base of operations, in fact, which is called the Peak, is located in our stratosphere. It's up in space, and it's a satellite base that's constantly floating around our planet. And so the headquarters of S.W.O.R.D. and the agents of S.W.O.R.D. Almost operate as, you know, like Space Force. Kind of like what our government is trying to put together with Space Force to deal with extraterrestrial threats as they come forward. And I wonder now, I mean, all we saw was a very brief snippet at the end of episode 1 of somebody sitting and writing into a notebook, taking notes, and it had the S.W.O.R.D. logo on it, but I was able to sort of go back, and I really wanted to pay attention to what was being shown in the frame around the TV set that had Wanda, and it did have S.W.O.R.D. up on the monitor screen. Now, that makes me wonder if this agent, which I couldn't even tell from the one hand that was being shown if it's male or female, and if it's female, that could mean that we are eventually going to see the primary agent who was in charge of S.W.O.R.D. through early stories that launched them in the Marvel Comics, which would be Abigail Brand. And that's a character who hasn't been named yet as being part of WandaVision. I'm only through episode 1. And so I don't know if this character is eventually going to show up or how much of S.W.O.R.D. we're going to get. But what I find interesting about that is that S.W.O.R.D., again, as we mentioned, exists to deal with extraterrestrial threats. Why would S.W.O.R.D. be paying attention to Wanda if it's largely focused on extraterrestrial threats? What threat does Wanda pose? And I hope that a lot of this stuff gets investigated as we go into episode 2. Now, I also want to bring up this fact with S.W.O.R.D., and this is where things get really, really interesting. S.W.O.R.D. was introduced in the Astonishing X-Men comics, and we haven't met the X-Men in the MCU yet. So is this a backdoor way into bringing mutants into our universe? I want to discuss the fact that I think going into this show, and it's a little bit confirmed after the course of the first episode, that if all of this reality, if this universe that we're watching play out in the show is a construct of Wanda's mind, then this becomes very much a House of M, which is a storyline that was popular in the comic books where Wanda, who is an extremely powerful mutant, creates an alternate universe where she gives everybody essentially the one thing in their world that they ever wanted. And so for mutants, that leads to them becoming the dominant species. But all of the Marvel superheroes come to realize this isn't our reality. This isn't the way things are supposed to be. And in fact, some of them maintain their memory from their previous existence, even though Wanda really messed with things. If they're doing the House of M on a smaller scale, then at the end of the House of M, Wanda kind of succeeds in getting rid of mutant population completely. She eliminates it from existence. If by the end of it, instead of in the comics where she says no more mutants, what if at the end of WandaVision and Wanda's construct, if she says, like, I'm going to bring mutants back into the world? I mean, it's a possibility. And the idea that they are using S.W.O.R.D, which is an organization that was introduced in the Astonishing X-Men comic, makes me think even more so that they're starting to bridge some connections to the existence of mutants in the MCU, because that's a big mystery about how they're going to introduce mutants into the MCU moving forward. So let's get to the idea of recreating the 1950s sitcom, a sort of Dick Van Dyke type thing. And WandaVision really, for the most part, follows the tone and structure of a classic sitcom. It even sets up a classic sitcom miscommunication where Vision thinks that he has to bring his boss home for a successful company dinner, and Wanda thinks that they're celebrating an anniversary. And I love that there are moments throughout the course of the episode where it's very clear that Wanda and Vision don't have the answers to the things that are going on in their life. They don't know their anniversary. They don't know their backstory. They don't know where they moved from. And that also speaks to the fact that I think Wanda has created all of this in her mind. And so when Vision is at his office and he says,
"What it is we do here exactly?"
Like, he wouldn't know that because he doesn't necessarily know what Wanda has established for them as a couple. And I think they get a lot of really great jokes out of that. The comedic chemistry between Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany just really struck me as fantastic. You didn't get to see them be humorous in the MCU movies up to this point, the way that Wanda and Vision played off of each other. They had little moments, but this was like a full-on, these two immersing themselves in classic sitcom archetypes, and I thought that they played off of it really well. Catherine Hahn was a great addition as well too, as the nosy neighbor. It's kind of fun when she came over with the full-on dinner, which is something that you would see in a 1950s sitcom, and you'd be like, that's really unusual. How does that person have that? I also want to talk about the commercial break that was built into it, which is a really fun addition to the sitcom formula. I even wondered if we were going to get more than one commercial. Like, the way that it faded to black and went into a commercial was pretty fascinating. Of course, it's for a product called the Toastmaster 2000. There's got to be something more significant to that name. My brain immediately went to the I love you 3000 line. Why would they use 2000 in a sitcom about the 1950s? What is Wanda thinking about? This is a product created by Stark Industries. It's the pacing of the commercial was really awkward as the suburban mom was waiting for the toast to pop and seemed really uncomfortable with the wait time. Oh, the logo for the Stark Industries Toastmate 2000 also seems to be something that I think can be applied to Wanda's reality moving forward, which is forget the past, this is your future. For the fact that in her real life, Vision is dead. Vision died in Infinity War and they weren't able to bring him back in Endgame. And the last place that we saw her in Endgame was, you know, kind of lamenting the fact that the people in the battle had really lost people significantly, whether it be Black Widow, or Vision. These are heroes that laid their lives on the line in order to stop Thanos and prevent him from getting the Infinity Gauntlet. So the idea of forget the past, this is your future really caught my eye. And I think that that is a mantra or a catchphrase that's probably going to drive some of the motivations of this season as we go forward. But then what I found really interesting too is when the boss had his choking instance, his wife wasn't able to break out of the artifice that Wanda had created for all of them. Like, all she could do at that point was maintain that awkward grin and keep repeating, stop it, over again. And it's almost like the program that Wanda has created, the landscape or the environment that she's created can't deal with glitches. And him choking on the food was a little bit of a glitch in the sitcom episode that she has created. And she had to break the fourth wall and almost say to Vision, like, okay, use your powers, help him, get us out of this loop, or else we're going to be stuck in it and the show can't finish. The show that I've created in my mind can't finish. and I hope that the show continues to do that. Yeah, I mean, coming out of it, really, the takeaway was the genre format works. These two seem to be having a blast. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany seem to be having a blast playing it as the archetypes of the characters that would exist in those sitcoms. But I'm glad we pulled back and they showed a hint of something else is going on and what the something else involves. And if you're going to name drop something, S.W.O.R.D is a great thing to name drop, because you can go a million different places with S.W.O.R.D. And I want to see immediately what's going on with episode 2. So I will be back with analysis of episode 2 of WandaVision, and we'll find out how much more of an impact S.W.O.R.D has on this, or where Wanda is, if they let us know about this, and how strong her artificial creations for her and Vision are going to be. Hopefully you enjoyed this analysis. I want to hear from you guys as well too, so make sure you hit the comments down below. Keep it on CinemaBlend for all of your WandaVision needs. If you're here on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. And in the meantime, keep up with everything that we're reporting here for your pop culture wants and needs here on CinemaBlend.